Welcome back, wordsmiths and story seekers. I am your host, Daniel Wilcox, broadcasting from the shadowy halls of Devil's Rock HQ, and today I am thrilled to share the writer's chair with the insanely talented David Sodergren. David lives in Scotland with his wife Heather and his best friend Boris the Pug. Growing up, he was the kind of kid who collected rubber skeletons and lived for horror movies. Not much has changed since then. His first novel, The Forgotten Island, was published in 2018. This was followed by Night Shoot in 2019, a brutal throwback to the early 80s slasher movie cycle. And 2020 was Sodergren's biggest year yet with two horror novels, the slasher noir Dead Girl Blues and the blood-soaked folk horror Maggie's Grave. But today we pick David's brain about his twisted coastal horror thriller, The Haar. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. No, it's a real pleasure to be here.
I am very excited to have you. So I don't know if you find the same, but I tend to discover new authors almost in weird cycles. So I'll hear nothing about a particular person, and then someone will recommend them once, and then a couple of months later that name floats up again, and before you know it, their name's being recommended everywhere. And you were that author for me this year, well, last year actually. A friend of mine was like, have you read The Haar? And I was like, I haven't. Is it good? Saw the cover. It was gorgeous. And then the Waterstones book club or reading club that I'm part of were like, should we do this for this month? And I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And I'll bring David on the show and kind of pick his brains about that. So I'm excited to have you here. And I don't know, do you get that in the cycles of just discovering all these new horror authors as you kind of go?
Just to jump back one bit, is this like Waterston's the bookshop? Like
The bookshop, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they going to start stocking me at any point?
Well, this is Waterstones in Stoke have their own independent little readers club, so it's part of that. But I can certainly ask if they will stock for you.
Well, yeah, they're now available on Ingram for any store in the world, I believe.
Beautiful.
To order from. So that's because I've never seen one in the UK in the wild. I know it's available, all my books are available across America, and you can get them in shops in Sweden and Denmark. And
yeah,
I'd love to see one somewhere in the UK.
It's so a white whale moment, isn't it? Of just like, oh, it's happened.
It would be lovely. But what was your question? Sorry, I completely. I will go off on wild tangents.
I love that. That's how I work best. But the question was kind of, how do you discover new horror authors? You know, are you familiar with that cycle of someone popping up and then before you know it, they're just hammered at you by all these different people?
Yes, actually. I mean, the examples I'm about to use are people I've not actually read yet, but they're people I hadn't really heard of. Someone like, say, Nick Roberts, or a name I see everywhere nowadays, Nat Cassidy.
Yes.
Who I wasn't familiar with them before, and then suddenly, yeah, I absolutely started seeing these names cropping up. And I know people have had the same with me, with me. So I do plan on checking them out. I'm so unbelievably slow at reading now because I write constantly when I'm not writing. My reading tends to be friends sending me their books for sort of beta reads or edits and stuff. So it's been a while since I've sort of actually been able to sit and read for pleasure much at all. I'm really looking forward to like going on a holiday maybe this year and just sitting by a pool and getting a couple of books, perhaps by those authors I've just mentioned, and just reading about them. Yeah, because that's where all the advertising and marketing and things comes from nowadays. Is social media. It's Instagram, really. I believe also TikTok, but I don't use TikTok. I have one, but I don't use it because it's a terrible place. So yeah. It's that is how I find out about new people nowadays. Certainly, anyway. I don't know where else I would find out about them. To be honest, yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I have a lot of questions about The Haar. I have a few questions from the Waterstones book club who have some questions for you as well. But I want to get into the big one that's been on my mind since I've read your little author bio, which is, what the hell are rubber skeletons?
Well, I mean, the clue is in the name. I had a suitcase full of skeletons made of rubber, of varying sizes, lengths and detail and things. And it was something that you used to be able to get a lot. I don't know. I'm not really in children's toy departments very often anymore, but you used to be able to always pick up a rubber skeleton, and I would buy it and I would hoard it in it was an Action Force suitcase I had. So it looked normal. It looked like I was collecting, army figures, but actually when you opened it up, there was just hundreds of skeletons. Some of them were plastic, some of them were almost like Transformers. It was a rib cage, and you opened the rib cage, and a skeleton unfolded from it. Absolute magic. I had a bank where you put I was going to say a pound coin, probably a penny, 20 pence maybe. Put that on, and a skeletal hand would come out and drag it in.
Oh, I've seen those.
Hours of fun, man.
But
yeah, I collected them.
I can't say that I've ever seen a rubber skeleton.
Well, you are missing out. If I find one, I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to be doing some Googling after this. But for people who aren't familiar with yourself, your writing journey, all the things you've been doing for the last, come up to 8 years now, can you give people a bit of an overview about your background into writing and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd always sort of written as a very young child. I'd started off writing well, I'm talking like 8, 9 years old and stuff, writing sequels to horror films that I liked. I'm sure I wrote a Child's Play 3 before there was a Child's Play 3. It was a page. It was dreadful. Or maybe it was Child's Play 4, I forget. I'd always written, but I really wanted to make films, and I used to get a camcorder with my friends, and at the weekend we would just sort of semi-improvise a film based on one of my ideas. Sometimes the idea was, let's just remake The Evil Dead. They would turn amazing ideas. But I wanted to, be a filmmaker really and tell stories that way. Which ended up in me eventually going to university, study film and photography, where I discovered I didn't really like working with other people at all. So I sort of moved into editing, the editing side of filmmaking, and I loved that. But then afterwards, I was like, sort of trying to find a job, and I was doing music videos for bands and stuff. But even then, I don't know if you've ever worked with musicians. They're very protective of their image, and I get it. That's you're doing a video, you want to look super cool, but I found them difficult to work with. So eventually I figured, the only sort of way I'm going to be able to tell my stories is my other love, which was reading. I'd been a voracious reader since a very small child. I used to memorize scary poems and things like that. The Hairy Toe, that was a good one. I don't remember it now, unfortunately. I remember little bits of it. But yeah, I had an Instagram at the time where I was just showing pictures of my book collection with my pug Boris, and it sort of gave me the idea of perhaps I'd love these books, I love these stories, and I've always wanted to tell them. So I thought I would just try my hand at writing them, and that started with probably 2017. Probably 2017, I did that NaNoWriMo, whatever you want to call it, National Writing Month. I did write a novel with that. It wasn't good, but it was good enough that I thought, okay, I do have an understanding, I think, of how to tell a story and of dialogue. And it gave me the impetus to try again. So I think I wrote a second one, if I remember correctly. My chronology is all confused. And that also wasn't great, but it was okay. And then my third one that I wrote was Forgotten Island, and that was where I thought, oh, I'm actually onto something here. And so I self-published that in 2018, September 2018, and haven't really looked back since.
I love that journey. There's definitely some parallels between mine and yours. Mine was less music and film. I was in the acting, playwriting, theatre background.
Oh, cool.
So I did sort of drama at uni, and I had the same experience of I'm tired of having to rely on other people to make something creative happen. And I went into proofreading and editing after university because I was like, that way I can it's just me in and I'm done, and I don't have to worry about egos or drama or ironically or things that are going on. And there is something really it's selfish is definitely the wrong word because I mean it in the best way possible, but to have just that full control, to be able to just bring something to life from start to finish that is entirely yours, there's something really, really rewarding about that. And you mentioned there, obviously, The Forgotten Island was your third book, and you hit that point of, okay, I'm happy with this. Do you remember specifically what it was that got you across the finish line of this is ready to publish in that book versus the other two?
Partly because this one I actually sent to someone else to read. So a guy called Bradley Freeman, who is an author I had discovered through Instagram, who wrote a horror novel called Reek. He's a New Zealand guy who was living in Japan at the time. And he wrote this book called Reek that was like a mix of like 80s splatter, found footage, Japanese sort of J horror, ghost girl stuff. And we become friends, and I'd sent him the book, and he was the first person to actually give me like good feedback, like, yeah, this is really good, pardon, and also to give me some really important criticisms, things that I'd read all these books all my life, but it's just things that I hadn't really picked up on, sort of head hopping POVs in the middle of chapters, just randomly jumping from person to person, things like that. And once he pointed out these elements, and I fixed them, that was when it really started to come together. Like, oh, okay, yeah, now it actually begins to read more like a novel. And because I did like edits with that and different drafts and things, the other ones were maybe 2 drafts or something, but every draft you do, well, really should improve the book. And so with that one, it just kept improving. And yeah, I really do have Bradley to thank for. I think he's re-releasing Reek very soon, actually. So anyone, if your listeners or viewers, should definitely check that out when it comes out. It's a fantastic book.
Amazing, yeah.
I mean, the first 2 books had good ideas and stuff in them, but I've since taken all the good ideas from those books and put them into other books. So they're never going to see release because they're never going to be published. Because all the good stuff has turned up in my other novels now. I've written 20 novels now, so I had these 2 sitting there with some good stuff. I was like, well, let's just take that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize the power that comes with writing and just finishing a novel, even if you don't publish it or do anything with it after. I still contest to, so I coached authors for a number of years, a few years back. And my number one advice was just finish that first draft, because once you've written a book, there's something so empowering. And I remember the first time that I finished my first novel, and that's never seen the light of day, and I've not revisited it. And I think about it often because, similar to what you're saying, there were some ideas in there that I like that I haven't gotten around to reusing. But just that finishing that first book just gives you the gusto to go, I can do this again, I can do this again. And you said you like 20 books on. What are maybe some of the biggest lessons you feel like you've learned from those early books to where you are now? We were talking very, very briefly before we started recording about a potential new book. What are the lessons that you've brought from the beginning over to now?
I think it's mostly to do with like the sort of technical aspects of writing, because my kind of stories and things haven't changed. I love to do different subgenres of horror. I think it's probably more to do with the actual planning of the books now. So it's kind of a case of I've learned to do what's right for the book. Let's say that's probably the biggest lesson is, so in terms of, say, is this a book that needs to be heavily plotted or not? Like heavily outlined, I mean, or not? Or is this a book that needs to be in the first person or the third person? It's knowing those things, I think has been the most helpful for me. My actual writing style, I say it's not changed. I don't really know. The problem is I write a book a year, 6 months, whatever it is, and I'm fully in it. Then I hit publish and I forget it even exists and I move on to the next one. So, I mean, the fact you asked me questions about the Heart is okay, because I did have to reread that last year for reasons. If any, if anyone asks me any questions about any other books I've written, I tend to be like, oh, did that happen? Sorry, what character? I don't remember that. It's like, I wrote that 16 books ago. I genuinely don't remember. I think the thing is I don't dwell on the past much. I'm always trying to go forward, do something different, do something new, but within my sort of kind of within my set parameters, so to speak.
Yeah. So just to test then your knowledge of your own book, are you happy to do a little bit of, maybe not an elevator pitch, but just to let people know a little bit of what the Haar is about if they haven't read it already?
Yeah, sure. The Haar is I describe as a sort of Scottish folk horror fairy tale. So it's based on a real incident where a small village in Scotland was being turfed out by a tyrannical billionaire, so that they could build a golf course. So that's the backdrop of this story, and there's only a few people left in the village, and they're trying to fight back. And one day, our protagonist Muriel Margaret Macaulay, she finds an odd creature on the beach, and that begins to change her life in some very unexpected and often gory ways. How's that? I hate doing these things.
No, absolutely. That rocked it. And I was just wondering, because obviously you mentioned Muriel, the full name escapes me, MMM. You're wearing what appears to be a superhero shirt. Am I correct?
No, it's Universal Monsters.
Oh, I was going to say,
Mummy,
it sounded a little bit like you're taking some of the Stanley naming devices for how to name your protagonists with the kind of alliteration. Is any of that deliberate, or was it just...
No, for me, the alliterative names comes from John Waters.
Ah, interesting. Fair, okay.
As soon as I say that, suddenly every single John Waters character name drops out of my mind.
Yeah.
But he very often does that. And it's something I tend to not do that often, but in that instance, I think because I opened the book with her name, it was Muriel Margaret Macaulay was 84 years old the first time she saw a man turned inside out by a sea monster.
Fantastic first line. Yeah.
And I think that just flowed really beautifully with the alliterative name. I focus a lot on like the rhythm of the words and things, which is why I do things that some people tend not to like, which is use italics for emphasis a lot, because it's really important to me that the rhythm and the I want that word is what the character is emphasizing, so I want that to come across.
Yeah.
So yeah, not Stan Lee, but John Waters, but I'm sure those two would have got along anyway.
There you go. And we are now 4 years since this book was first published. And from what I can see, it's one of your most successful books. It has insanely amazing art from Trevor Henderson on the front. And this might be for after the show, but I've been trying to get Trevor Henderson on the show for ages, so we might have a chat about that. Who knows? But
cool, yeah.
Incredible, striking art on the front, and definitely across your series of individual books, there tends to be kind of that iconic imagery. And I work in digital marketing and branding, and I applaud kind of how your covers look, and you can see a book and go, it's a David Sodergren book. So how much thought do you put into those? Where did that kind of come from, that vision and the images around the stories that you tell?
Well, my biggest people often say that my books the covers remind them of like 80s, 70s and 80s sort of horror novels. Although for me the big inspiration, and this will come back a lot, is my big inspiration is movies. So it was the movie posters of the sort of 60s, 70s and 80s up to a point. There's something about that. I love an image contained within, a square or a circle or something, that, especially when in some instances that image is slightly sort of bursting out of it, I think that gives it a real sort of visceral feel. So Maggie, if not really good for the podcast, but her arm is like puncturing the box and things. I loved that. And so for my first, I think 3, or was it my first 2? So my books are over there, so I'm looking at my first 2. I went for that. Then I did a book that was based on the Italian Giallo films, and they had a very specific. They were based on books from the 1930s, Giallo Mondadori, that all had these special yellow covers with a circular image, and I did that for that book. And then I went back and carried on with my sort of black cover with the image, and people have always said, "Oh, I wish I've not bought Dead Girl Blues because it doesn't match the other books." It's like, oh God, right, that's a problem. So occasionally I try and break out of that, because sometimes you want to do something slightly different, but generally I'm like, well, actually this does work for me. People, like you say, people can see it and immediately know. So I've actually re-released one of my books so far, no, 2 of them so far, which had these slightly different color covers, and I've re-released them with the black cover, so that people can have that beautiful sort of collection of spines on their shelves. And never underestimate the importance of that for people. The people are collecting your books. If they just want to read them, they might just read them on Kindle. But if they're buying the paperbacks, buying the hardcovers, it's nice to have the match. A lot of people like that. So yeah, I think I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah,
to be honest, because it works for me. I like it. And yeah, just I still have things I can play with. The actual cover art itself is always up for grabs. I've got all the different fonts and colors and things, and that's something I've been experimenting with a little bit more in my more recent books, is the actual I used to just choose a font and use it, but now I'm actually like sort of manipulating it a bit more and
Hmm.
stuff. So it's I do. My wife did the designs for the for the first three books, I think, and then she showed me how to do it using Adobe Illustrator, for Maggie's Grave, and I've just taken over ever since because she would give up a good amount of time to do it for me, but I can sit there for 3 weeks going away and fixing it and making tiny little adjustments and going back again. So yeah, I wanted to learn how to do it, and
Yeah, one of the pleasures of being independent. You can have that fun. You can learn those skills. You can tweak and whenever you want, change them up to fit the demands of the audience.
exactly. That's that. Yeah, I love the whole independence thing is just perfect for me because I can do whatever I want when I want, and that works for me.
Well, since we're here, talk to me a little bit about the choice to self-publish and be independent, because I know that that's one of the biggest questions that especially early writers have, and it's always mythologized as a choice between should I be independent or should I be quote traditionally published. And one of the arguments that I heard from an author friend a few years ago, it's always stuck with me, is you can choose to go self-published, but you can't choose traditional publishing because you're choosing to pursue the
Yeah.
publishing, but you still need someone to say yes. So, have you had thoughts about looking more at publishers, or are you very, very happy kind of sitting in indie and just having that control of your books?
I'm very happy staying indie. I turned down last year before, one of the big five. I always want to say big four because I always think of the thrash metal big four. Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax. But the big five, that's the publishers. I have turned one of them down, because I was like, well, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm very happy, and I know that to some people that's absolutely insane. Because I mean, when I started out, this, like you say, self-publishing wasn't so much a choice. I looked at what I was writing, and I thought nobody's gonna, no, none of the big publishers are gonna want this. Horror wasn't really in again at that point. I mean, and they cared about that, like fucking hell. Um, it's always in my house, mate. So it's like nobody's gonna want to publish that. I'm like, well, it's gonna be a complete waste of time, sending it to the big guys and stuff. And then I knew I could try for a small press. But the thing is, I enjoy every single aspect of writing, absolutely every single part. I love it. I love coming up with ideas, outlining, writing, editing, designing the covers, the marketing. Whatever. It's nobody loves that. But even if you publish through a trad publisher, you still have to do the marketing now.
Mhm.
They do a bit, but it's still up to you at the end of the day. Um, so yeah, it wasn't a choice initially, but I've come to enjoy it so much, and for a number of reasons as well. I mean, financially, yes, it's a difficult one because I believe you do make considerably more per book sold by publishing yourself through,
Mhm.
your royalties are better. That's balanced by the fact that Pan Macmillan or whatever can get your book into every single bookstore in the
Yeah.
land. So maybe you're making more per book, but maybe you're selling more books. I don't know. um but the key for me is back when we were talking about the study in film, and I didn't really like working with other people, that remains true to this day. And I don't want deadlines. I don't want someone saying no, you shouldn't be doing that and stuff. I think the reason I am popular with a group of readers is that the books are very clearly me. They're coming from my mind. It's completely unfiltered. Um, and I worry that that would be lost perhaps if I had someone looking over my shoulder being, well, maybe you shouldn't have that. Maybe the Haar would be better off with like that four-way monster sex scene.
Yeah.
It's like, and hey, maybe they're right, but it's the book I wanted to write. So yeah, I don't like deadlines as well. The thing is, I I'm just writing whatever I want to write. So at the moment, I have a new book that I'm just about to announce, or possibly when this drops, I will have announced. I also just finished the first draft of another book, and I'm also sitting on the first draft of another book. I don't know which one I want to come out as my October release and which one's my May release. Maybe neither of them. Who knows? I I I will decide that. I'll decide that myself. And I don't want to be locked into something, and then maybe I'm like, yes, so this is the book I'm writing for you Scrivener or something, but actually I don't want to write that book at that point. I want to write this other one that's completely obsessed me at the moment. Because if it's not a book that's completely obsessing me at that moment, it's not going to be as good. If I'm forcing it for a deadline, it's not going to be as good. It's going to be forced, and nobody wants that. No. So yeah, I love independent. I love being independent. It gives me a sort of, I'm a pretty square guy, to be honest, but it's as close as I get to being punk rock. Just churning out my little independent, grimy, sleazy, but heartfelt horror books for some like-minded freaks.
I do love the fact of thinking of writing as rebellion, in knowing that it's essentially just you at a computer just tapping away at keys and staring vapidly at a screen for hours on end. Like there's nothing, like it seems for a lot of people that aren't yet fully in the throes of writing a book, they have that romantic vision of just, being in a coffee shop and it's all very like nice and like fun and everything. And like, sometimes it is, but a lot of it is that kind of grind, is the routine, is getting the words on the page. What does that routine kind of look like for you?
Well, I was very lucky in that. I say lucky. That's an unbelievable amount of hard work to get there. But about 18 months ago, I was able to finally quit my day job in retail, where I'd worked for 24 years, and able to write full time. So for me, I have now found my routine perfectly. So I still get up at the same time as I used to. Still got up at 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock or so, I will watch a horror film. I'll watch a film, actually, not just a horror film. I'll watch a film, and I find that really gets my mind thinking about stories and characters and things like that. Then I write. Wife comes home, we'll have tea. We might do something together. She might go and do some cosplay making, and I will just continue to write. End of the night, I will watch another film. I write an awful lot, so I do. I do. I can be fairly prolific with releasing my books. But that's because I love it, and I found it works for me. My actual writing experience is basically I sit on my settee with the dog next to me and the laptop on my lap itself. It's very poor for my posture. It needs to be changed very soon because I'm beginning to feel it in my shoulders and arms. Let that be a lesson for aspiring authors. Get a comfortable chair and a desk. But yeah, that's where I've written every single book, and it's never changed. I once tried sitting in a different room; it didn't work for me. I can edit on my phone outside, but I can't write on my phone, outside.
That sounds horrendous for me.
Yeah.
Edit on your phone.
Yeah. So I would say don't you do it until towards the very end, and you just sort of more reading through and looking for
Yeah.
stuff. I wouldn't be
not like structural big things.
Oh God, no! Right? Oh, that'd be an absolute nightmare. No. I used to do that back when I worked. I would on my lunch break I would go out, get a cigarette, and just sit there and make adjustments on Forgotten Island and stuff, and then be like, shit, gotta go back to work. Because you have to find the time whenever you can. And I think a lot of people want to write, and what they find when they start writing is, oh, it is actually a tremendous amount of work. And it is. So if you don't love it, maybe it's not for you. But if you do love it, it's just a case of carving out that time. And if that means, not going out to the pub that night or whatever, sometimes you have to just, it says me, I'm a hermit. I barely leave the house. I go to the cinema occasionally. That's about it. So
it works. I stole, well, I didn't steal. In researching, obviously speaking to you, I did a little bit of looking on Google, as is the place to research, and saw that you were featured on my buddy Dan Saul's blog last year. And since we're kind of in the writing process talk at the minute, you said something on there that caught my eye, which was, I tend to write with a swaggering self-confidence, and then halfway through a story, I think, this is shit, scrap the whole thing. I find that taking a month away from the story and then going back to it with fresh eyes usually puts things in perspective. And I just wanted to highlight that as a bit of a, it doesn't matter how many books that you've written, there's still seems to be that moment when you dip, the imposter syndrome kicks in. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like for you and how that kind of feels?
For me, it's more a case that it's more a case of, for me, of getting to a certain point in the story, and I've probably outlined chapter by chapter in terms of story and stuff, and it's usually I get to a certain point and think, oh, that's who the characters are. Oh, for God's sake, scrap the whole thing. Yeah, this is shit because yeah, these characters are not right. I've sort of come to the realization of that's who this person is. That's what they want. My outlines tend to be structural, right? Here to here to here to here. This is how it's going to work. And this is, yes, so here's what follows that. So I'm not going to get stuck when writing, but it tends to be less character focused in the outline. And I'll let that sort of find that in the writing. So yeah, it usually comes about half to even 3/4 of the way through the book. That happened with Maggie's Grave. Absolutely. It was, I think it was 3/4 of the way through, and it just wasn't working at all. And then we went to Tenerife and sat by a swimming pool, and I had over Christmas, I had a notebook and I just rewrote the entire outline, realizing where the characters actually what they wanted, what they were doing, and that worked out better. In terms of imposter syndrome, I wouldn't say it's so much that for me. I would only get that when it's a case of I get people writing me, sending me messages that are unbelievably lovely. Like, oh, you've reawakened my love of reading, or you've made me want to write, or this made me cry and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. Because like I say, I put these books out and I just move on and I don't think about them again. And I've not read my reviews in 5-6 years or something. I just working on the next one. So it's only when people actually, reach out or tag me in a post or something, say stuff like that, they're like, oh my God, really? I did that? Because I'm just, I'm just some arsehole sitting at home writing through. So it's stuff like that where I'm like, oh, okay, wow. Are you sure? That's where the imposter syndrome would come in for me. I think would be like, oh, right, okay. But in terms of the actual writing, I do think I'm a good writer. And I write stuff that I like that other people happen to also like. And when I think a book that I'm writing is shit, it's more a case of I've fucked it up. I've done something wrong. I've just scrapped 40,000 words into one that I just scrapped completely, and I don't know if I'll go back to it. It took me that long to figure out. No, it's not happening. It's just, I think, you know what? Maybe I will come back to it in 6 months and say, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I see what I did wrong. I can see how I can fix this. But yeah, I would say it's imposter syndrome so much as just like, oh yeah, I have fucked this up.
Yeah, and now, as we mentioned, you are almost 4 years since first publishing the Haar. What has surprised you most about readers experiencing the book over that period?
I'm surprised it's been 4 years, mate.
What is time?
I think so. So when I first wrote that, it was more mainstream. I think I was subconsciously going for a more mainstream crowd, moving away from the slightly more ultra extreme moments of some of my earlier books. And then I was like, fuck that. And I just added the stuff in. A few things. I think it's still a fairly mainstream book, but the aforementioned slimy monster sex, is
which is always brought up with every conversation about that book.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Good.
People haven't read it yet, read it, and you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's sexy. Yeah, so I'm just constantly surprised by how mainstream it's found a mainstream audience. That's the amazing thing for me. I thought it was just gonna play to my usual oddballs, love you guys. But it has gone much further, and sometimes I think maybe I shouldn't have put that stuff in. Maybe it would have been a mega hit, but no, it is exactly the book I wanted to put out, and I'm happy about that. I love when people say it's made them cry. I think I really enjoy when people say that it has how much they enjoyed having an elderly female protagonist, because it's quite rare in the world of horror. It's extremely rare. I'm very surprised sometimes when people say they couldn't relate to her because she was older. That always baffles me, because I'm like, she's just a human being. I get very confused when people can't relate to people because they're older, they're younger, they're a different skin color or something. Like it's just people. They have the exact same struggles. and loves and hates and desires as you. They're just ever so slightly older or younger. So that always confuses me slightly, but I mean, whatever. At the end of the day, I think my favorite feedback I get on that is people saying, I get some terribly nice messages about my granny's memoirs being at the
Yes.
end, from people who've lost their grandparent or even lost someone, and they've said that that's really like the ending of that book and things, has really affected them in a positive way. It's made them think about, maybe they try not to think about someone they'd lost, and then because of this book they had, and they'd had a really emotional moment like that. That's when I get these messages, I'm just like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that, also sorry, but like it's it's wild when you get stuff like that. Like, it's so nice that you can make someone feel like that in a book
Mm.
where a monster dissolves someone's cock. It's
I
not,
love horror so much.
isn't it great?
Yeah.
And for me personally, my favorite thing about um the reception to the Haar and the fact that it has, you're right, it's my bestseller by a considerable margin. It outsells everything else hugely. But it's the fact that so many people now have read my granny's memoirs, like so many people, and it's now been translated into some of these haven't been announced yet. It's definitely Spanish, Italian, although the publisher ripped me off. Being translated into Vietnamese, German. I think it's 7 languages or something. So that my granny could, she's dead now, obviously, but if she could see that, if she knew that a teenage boy in Vietnam is reading her memoirs, she would be so thrilled. She wouldn't believe it, blow her mind. So yeah, yeah, that's my favorite sort of part of it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. And kind of on those points of the Haar, I've got a couple of questions from the Waterstones Reading Club.
I'll try my best.
Yeah, and the first one is Cheska, who says, aging women are rarely centered in horror unless they're villains or victims. Was Muriel written as an act of defiance, and how did you go about making her feel real?
See, I've never thought of her writing her as an act of defiance, but actually that's a really great point, and in a way, yes, it was, because I love some of my absolute favorite books are things like Graham Masterton, Sean Hudson, James Herbert, their sort of stuff, like from the 70s and 80s and
Very
things.
pulpy.
Super
Mm-hmm.
pulpy. I love how it's just fast-paced, gory, sort of kind of trashy and stuff. But the thing that always bothered me about them, not bothered me, but just sort of like, oh, a real eye-rolling sort of moment. The hero's always this, lantern-jawed, pipe-smoking, tweed jacket-wearing Professor Hero, and he's so boring. He's so fucking boring, man. And it's just like, oh, I didn't want that. So I've never gone for that, and I've always been very comfortable writing women. I've spent most of my life around almost nothing but women, and so yeah, in a way, it was like, you know what? Let's write an older woman, because I do like to, like when I say, I like to stick to what I know with sort of horror and stuff, but I do like to branch out and do different things within that. And so writing an elderly person was, yeah, it's a really fun way to keep it interesting for me. And yeah, absolutely, because it is something slightly unusual, something that you don't see very often. And when it comes to making her feel real, it was like I was just saying before about people not being able to connect or empathize with the character because their differences. I made it real just by treating her like I treat, I have to say, all my characters, most of my characters, which is as real people, um, with all their faults and and things like that. Yeah, I try and write everyone as just as a human being, because that's what we all are. And once you start begin to learn their backstory and where they are currently in life, and what they're looking for and things, it's fairly easy just to write someone real, And I say I based elements of her life on like my granny and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, in terms of the sort of people they were quite different. My gran, I'm sure if the bulldozers turned up at her door, she would have said, oh well, I'll just go and sit over there, much more old school sort of thing. So it's making her a more of a badass granny was
Yeah.
just good fun.
And she was pretty badass. Hannah asks, how do you feel about the book being subcategorized as a romance? Was that intentional?
Absolutely. I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with that. Horror's my number one thing. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I also absolutely love and adore romance, rom-coms, comedies, action movies, martial arts films. I just love stories. Um, and again, romance is something you don't see terribly often in horror. And I'm an absolute sucker for a sentimental romantic story. I absolutely, I keep saying absolutely. I'm going.
Absolutely.
I just love. Yeah, I'm very, very happy. I see people saying, "Oh, is it a romance?" Oh, hot take, it's a romance. Like, that's not a hot take. It's absolutely a romance. It's about 50% of the book is a fucking romance. Like, yeah, go for it. Yeah, I mean, call it what you want. If you say it's not a romance, whatever. But for me, yeah, it absolutely is a what's that word they use? Horror romance or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very happy for it to be called a romance because to me it 100% is. Yeah, it's a big part of it. It's something I've not done that much of recently in books, but there's a couple of ones coming out that are definitely heavy on the romantic elements as well. So
intriguing. And we are unfortunately getting to the point where we're coming up to time, but I do have one more little section that I like to do with all of my guests, which is my quick fire round. It sounds intimidating. It's just 10 questions I throw at you really fast. If you fail, you never come back on the podcast again. Are you ready for me to throw 10 questions at you?
Hit me.
Cool. Are you a morning writer or a night writer?
Oh, morning, night.
Stumbled at the first post.
I would say morning and night. I'm watching a film, literally everything in between.
All the things.
Yeah, 11 till 11 writing.
Wow. Biscuits or cakes?
Biscuit. Oh my God, what? If we're counting chocolate chip cookies as biscuits, yeah, we'll go with
yeah. And I've put a lot of pressure on this, but I will say that I have had guests previously that turned them into entire answers, so it's not as hot and precious as I made.
Okay, I thought you'd had guests that stormed off and
no, I've had like 5-minute answers to A or B questions, and it's delightful. What's your favorite non-horror film?
That's actually an easy one. It's Bullet in the Head, which is it's a Hong Kong film from 1990 by John Woo, who's probably most famous for the Hard Boiled and The Killer. So it's a sort of it's what's known as a heroic bloodshed genre. That was a term invented in I think the 90s by a British guy. But it basically refers to Hong Kong action movies that are concerning gangsters, generally triads, that are hugely emotional, powerful stories about men who's incredibly strong ethics and codes of honor, who are super vulnerable and they're always crying and looking, and the most important thing for them is looking out for their friends and stuff. And I just love those stories. And that I saw that in, I think, 1994, and it became my favorite film ever. And I watched it 4 times over that weekend, and still to this day is my favorite film of any genre.
Wow.
It's absolutely incredible. It's a beautiful story about friendship set in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, sort of 67, 68 and stuff. It's incredible. What a wonderful film. It's out on 4K UHD in America, but it's coming out from Arrow, I think, in hopefully in about 3 or 4 months. So definitely check it out. It's
Bullet in the Head.
Yeah, it will destroy you emotionally or
okay.
otherwise.
That is some hype, and I will be checking that out. What's your favorite mythical creature?
It's Nessie, mate. Come on.
If the Haar were a film, who's going to direct it?
Funny. That's one I've not really thought about that much. Which is odd because that's the one that we have been trying to get made into a film. It's not happening yet. Don't get excited, guys. It's difficult.
Work in progress.
I mean, certain books of mine of like like Dead Girl Blues would have been Dario Argento or Brian De Palma or something, but the Haar, it's a really tough one. I don't know. It'd probably be a good idea to go for someone not specifically known for their horror. Like I don't know, it'd be fun to see something like was it is it Emerald Fennell did Saltburn? I really like the look of her Wuthering Heights that's coming out. I've not seen it yet, so I'll reserve judgment until I've seen it. But someone like that I think would be quite a cool take on it. You don't want to get I was going to say you don't want to get James Wan to do it. No, you do. Absolutely incredible. But I think it'd be interesting to see a non-horror person take on something like that, because the horror is only a part of it. It'd be really interesting to see someone else's take. It's someone with a really good sense of style and stuff as well, and good needle drops, which Emerald Fennell seems to have.
Nice. Pillow forts or sandcastles?
Pillow fort, because then I'm at home.
Yes. Who's your favorite author?
It's the most boring answer in the world, isn't it? Can you guess? Can you guess who it is?
Am I Stephen King?
Yeah,
there we go.
I know it's so boring, but I mean, in terms of like the impact it had on my life and
100%.
and my writing and reading and stuff, my wild card will say Sean Hudson, because he was the one that made me realize, oh shit, you can do this, but in Britain. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't like that. With his book Spawn.
See, I've not read any Sean Hudson yet. I've found a few paperbacks in various charity shops and things that I've collected. I've not read yet, but my kind of go-to pulp is Richard Lehman.
Oh yeah,
I could just tear through those books, but it's exactly what you say about like it's always the same sort of protagonist, it's always the same sort of stories, but they're just gripping for me. You could just tear through those pages quite easily.
Lehman's a funny one, because I feel like you can read one and you think, oh, this is amazing. He's really terrific what he does. Then you read another one, and in theory, it's very similar, but it's absolute garbage. It's so bizarre.
I did DNR one. The last one that I read of his, I put down because I was like, to be fair, it got very much entrenched in the whole like 70s, 80s ogling women unnecessarily thing, to the point that I was a bit like, it's a bit much, Richard. Come on.
That's honestly one of my favorite things about him, because I remember reading his book Island. I love Island. It's great, but it's from the point of view of this maybe 18, 19-year-old boy, and every single thing is like turning him on. Every single thing is erotic, and it's endless descriptions of women's breasts and bums and stuff. And I remember reading it thinking, wow, this Richard Lehman, he really knows how to write gross teenage boys. What a talent. And then it turns out every character in every one of his books is like that. Like, oh, okay, he's just a pervert. Right, cool.
Yeah. The 70s are a different time. Oh my god, I've lost myself in my questions. Okay, the world is taken over by mutated zombie snails. They're just as slow, just as sticky, but they occasionally groan as they crawl. Whose house are you hiding in?
You know what? I'm still thinking about Richard Lehman. I didn't hear the question. Something about snails.
The world is taken over by mutated zombie snails. They're just as slow, just as sticky, but they occasionally groan as they crawl. Whose house are you hiding in?
To be honest, I'll probably just stay in my own house.
I mean, you've got a whole movie collection, but for people who are listening on the podcast, like check it out on YouTube. That's part of the bookshelf of the collection of movies of David Sodergren. So you kind of set up there.
Yeah, you can see they're like doubled up. There's entire rows behind, but I've run out of space now. So
another person, I don't know if you've ever come across them, but I will be uploading an interview with them in the next couple of weeks, is Matt Serafini. Has an incredible Blu-ray selection as well. Just the entire background there is just wall to the wall Blu-rays. It's marvelous.
It's amazing. It's the one thing that I spend money on. So I'm doing well in my career. But all it means for me is that I can now buy a few more Blu-rays every month. When Vinegar Syndrome or Severin or 88 Films or Arrow or something announce that month's releases, I can go, yeah, like those ones, and order them. Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I don't really drink. I don't really go out. Like I just stay home, watch movies, and write. I'm very boring in that respect. But yeah, I just love movies.
Yeah. Well, I've got two more questions for you. The first is, what one book would you recommend above all others, not including your own?
Oh, you will see me turn to my bookshelf. It's a horrible question.
This is the hard ones. We're at the end. We're about to cross the finish line.
You know what I would recommend? I would recommend the novelization of Halloween, just because I saw it there. I think it's by Kirk Richards, which is it's okay. It's okay, but it turns Michael into a raging sex pest, who gets an erection every time he goes to kill someone, and it's really funny. Like so, I mean, it's not great literature. I'm sure there are better books I could recommend, but you know what? Come on,
We're here.
Like because it came out just after the first film, so there was no, expectations. There's no army of Halloween fans waving pitchforks and screaming that they've spoiled the canon. It's just absolute mania. It's insane. It reminds me of the Sean Hudson Terminator novelization, where he just constantly refers to the Terminator as Terminator, like it's his name. Terminator, open the door. It's fuck that, man. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, brilliant, perfect. Yeah. And final question, where can my listeners find out about yourself and all that you've got going on?
The best place really is Instagram, or my Patreon. I now have Patreon is where you'll get information way in advance. I actually post stuff on there, unlike any other social media. And you do get copies of my books 2, sometimes even 3 months in advance of the release date. Instagram I do still use and still post on. That's the one social media I use now. I have a Facebook, forget it. I don't have a Twitter anymore. It's TikTok and stuff. The Instagram handle is Paperbacks and Pugs. That's the name of my publishing company I use to make myself sound more legit to people who still have a stigma towards independent publishing. And yeah, that would be the best place to find me. I will say as well, if anyone is thinking of, anyone who's in Scotland or is, can fancies coming to Scotland, I'm going to be at the HorrorCon Scotland on April 11th at the Glasgow SEC. I'll have a table there, be signing books and stuff. It's the one time I actually get to meet the readers, and I love it. So please, it's a great time to come along, get some signed books. I'll have copies of my new book, The Suffering, which will not be out till May, but you'll be able to pick up advance copies, paperbacks at the HorrorCon. So it'd be really cool to see some people there. Last few years it's been unbelievably busy. I've been absolutely knackered by the end of it, but just feeling on an absolute high because everyone's been so nice, and it's just great to meet people that the people that support me and that allow me to do what I do, which is write daft stories that for people to enjoy. So yeah,
perfect, all covered, and I'll put all links for that in the show notes. But that is now a wrap. So thank you so much, David, for joining us this week on the Writer's Chair podcast.
Thank you. I had a great time. I'm terrible at interviews generally, but I feel that one went okay. So, it's I'll be back on anytime you want me, mate.
Oh, perfect. I'll hold you to that. And an especially big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Before you dash off, if you're craving deeper conversation, writing advice, or just fancy hanging out with fellow readers and storytellers, why not consider joining the Devil's Rock community on Discord? I'm on a mission to build the largest online space for fans of horror and dark fiction, a home where writers and readers connect, create, and thrive together. It's free, open to all, and always crackling with inspiration. So if you're ready to pull up a virtual chair, head on over to devilsrockbooks.com/podcast for the invite link. And until next time, my friends, write bravely and dream dark. Thanks again, David.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.